The nice thing about project management is it can be done completely online. Currently we use Smartsheet as the basis for communicating with other departments and functions and following the flow of the job. So right now I'm into CoreWorks job reporting, and there are filters that make it really easy to keep up with what is in creative. So if you go to the filters, you can come down to creative, and it will filter out jobs that are not sitting in creative. The only thing you have to watch out for these multiple departments. So multiple departments, sometimes those projects are, the pieces of them are in creative. Sometimes they're not. Right now you can see all the Berkshires are multiple departments. Right now those are not in creative, so I just ignore those. So you're looking for jobs that are creative or creative approved, which will be this dark orange color. Okay. When I'm checking for new projects, typically I'll get an alert through my email that a new project has dropped in or a project has returned. Right now we've got 2 new projects. One of the big keys is that there's no designers assigned to them yet. I've asked sales not to assign designers. What that allows me to do is look at capacity and assign it myself if a designer has worked on a project in the past. Typically I remember, but sales sometimes will put in the comment, hey, Dave worked on this last time, or Monica worked on something like this last week, and then that helps me assess who might be the best candidate for the project depending on capacity. So right now we've got 2 projects, type 2s. We have a tortilla sign for Brolums, and then we have an additional vinyl piece for bees. I go across and look. They have put a due date in for the bees. I know we are installing bees and trying to wrap that job up, so they actually have requested that this be done tomorrow. However, the Brolums does not have a due date. Neither one of them have a priority marker on them. So the next thing I do is I'm looking at the comments. So this is where on the type 2 process, then I am going in and reviewing the request. So I'm going to start with the tortilla sign. I open up the comments and I want to read the history of the job. Sometimes there's just one comment, sometimes there's already multiple in there. So it looks like Laura started this and she's asking Gabby to put this in once we finish the branding for Brolum. So that was Gabby's trigger. So because we've done that, then Gabby has now moved this into creative, and she says we need to update their tortilla sign with the new branding. She's telling us the quantity. She's giving us the size, which is great. She's telling us how we're going to attach the sign using foam tape, and then she's given us a file path to the engineering sheet of the previous sign. So based on this, it looks like we'll be taking a file we've already done, and we're just updating it with probably the new brand marks. We may adjust some fonts. I'll have to go find this and actually take a look at it. Sometimes they'll attach an image or reference file here. It would have been helpful if she would have taken a screenshot so I could immediately see what she was talking about. But because she didn't, then I will have to get onto the server and take a look at this. So reviewing the project, it looks like to me there's enough information here for our designers to get started. I will have to provide some additional information here in a comment for the designer, but I can do that easily. I know where to find brand assets, and then I can hunt this down and maybe even find the original artwork. So I'm going to close out of that comment. This job, because we're not doing something from scratch, I don't anticipate it taking very long. So now I'm basically going to look at capacity and decide if we can actually do it tomorrow, or if it's something that we'll need to push out a couple days. So that's where I'm going to go to the creative capacity reports. So You can get to that via workspaces. There's a workspace creative capacity. It contains all of the sheets for the team. What I do on my Smartsheet is I actually, here in your recently opened, you can actually pin your favorites. So what I've done is I've pinned the billable design team here so it can quickly access their reports just with the click of a button. So I don't need to go to this workspace over and over. So if I'm looking at the designers here, the billable designers, I can check on each one and see what projects they've got in their queue. Dave, have to address this one for him. This is one that came back in. You can see the due date's passed. It's because this was his last due date. So I'm actually going to delete that due date out and save that. And then when I refresh his report, it's going to drop this down. So I need to put in a new due date, but I need to check on what changes need to be made here. So then that tells me that he's really only got one project here in his queue. I remember assigning that out to him. It's a little bit more extensive. So for now, I'm going to move on and see what other designers have going on. I'm going to check Monica's. I know she's working on paint plans here. I also know she's working in manufacturing all day tomorrow. So she won't even be in creative tomorrow. So I can put something in her court for Friday because I think she was starting on paint plans today. Today's Wednesday. But I'll keep looking. We've got Katie. And Katie's working on branding. She's talked to me a little bit about her schedule. I know that she's putting a lot of time into finishing this up, and then she has another branding project she's working on. We have Lincoln, our creative intern, and looking at his project queue. He's in all day tomorrow, and it looks like he's only got one project. So this could be, he could be a good candidate for this job because it's a smaller job. We've got Jamie. Jamie's really focused on the curated process, but she does have the capabilities to do something like this if I needed her to. And then there's Drew. And so looking at Drew's queue, he's got a number of responsibilities with Rainbow, and I'm looking at this. This is a logo package, so I know that that's a bit bigger of a job. And then he's got a real estate sign, but either way, he doesn't look to be too busy or too packed right now. So I've got some options. When I look at trying to get stuff moved through, I'm going to go back to DeCoric's job reporting. This was the Tortilla sign. There was no date assigned, so I know we have a little more time on this one. B's additional vinyl. This is the one where they asked for Thursday, so maybe I'm going to drop down here and I'll take a look at the scope of this project. So this one seems to be a little more urgent, and so I may need to assign this one first and then find where the other one fits. So I'm going to read over these notes. There's a few more vinyl items needed for the store. Tara put this in. Looks like she's given us some good details. We need an elevator sign. Number 2, she's attached photos of the pharmacy. They need the same wrap that we did for the culinary kitchen. Let's see, number 3, they need another employee only sign. And then she's given us some JPEG reference images, which is great. Reference images really, really help us understand what they're wanting. So it looks like they're wanting something right here. This looks like someone dropped a design in. Let's see here. There's a sign. Okay, so that was kind of a mock-up, I guess. And then she's given us pictures of the actual space. Yeah, so they're wanting that wrap right around here, the base of this. So it looks like we've got some direction here. This one, there's a little more involved, so I think it would take a designer a little bit longer, not too much longer, but at least an hour to get all of these knocked out. She's given measurements. The design seems to be pretty straightforward. So anyway, I'm going to assign this one first because it is due Thursday, and then we'll see if there's capacity to do this one Thursday or if I need to put that one towards Friday. So this one, the additional vinyl, I'm going to go back to those capacity reports. I'm going to go to Dave. So Dave is the original designer for bees, and I do have him working on an online shopping e-shop for Brolums. I've set that due date up as the 18th. You can actually see who sets due dates. If you highlight the due date and then you right click, you can go view cell history, and it will actually show you the history of the job. So you can see where I originally set the due date at Friday the 19th, and then based on capacity, I was like, oh, Dave can probably get this done by the 18th. Not knowing exactly where he's at on this, then I will check in with him in the morning. The other thing to think about is he has this one that just dropped in. So I actually might move to a different designer because I need to find out what the scope of this revision is, because this may actually be competing with this for the last couple days this week. So I'm going to move on from Dave, even though he was the original designer of bees. And I'm going to look at someone else taking this on. So again, Monica's out all day on Thursday in manufacturing. So this one is, they've requested this to be done on Thursday. I'm going to put this in Jamie's court. So Jamie, she's been working on curated, but she has expressed an interest in breaking up some of that to do other things, just to give herself a break. So I think this would be a good break for her tomorrow. She does work all day on Thursday, so I'm going to put the bees job in her court. I know she's very capable of doing this type of thing. I'm going to add Jamie's name. And then we already have a due date. I'm going to make sure and save that because a Smartsheet does not save automatically. I'm going to add this project to FunctionFox. So we've got a quote QUO823. So I'm going to go to FunctionFox. I go to Projects and Manage. That's where we add projects. And it's under AFS. So this is under the Salt Lake warehouse. This would be QUO. In the past, I used to copy and paste the quote numbers in here, and they always turned out weird. For some reason, FunctionFox didn't read them right. I don't know if it will now with the new updates for 2021. We can try it again, but I always just type it in manually. For some reason, it didn't seem to like the copy-paste from Smartsheet last year. However, it doesn't ever have a problem with copying the text and putting it in that other project title blank. So I don't know. It does. I don't know. Anyway, so B's additional vinyl, it is signage. That's how we label type 2s. If it was a retail project, we'd put it under retail decor down here. But for now, we just put it in signage. And then always ignore the due date. We never shoot for due dates in FunctionFox. You can actually build out a project, but we don't ever have control over that. So always ignore the due date. Project manager should default to Lauren. Status would be in progress. Sales team would be Laura, and you can get all that information from the line here. So if we go over, we see Laura's name here. We'll go back to FunctionFox. Designer is going to be Jamie. We don't have a budget for this. Typically the budgets are for type 1s. That's the only jobs that I actually put times and estimates in for. So for type 2s, we just leave this blank. And then you hit Save New. You're going to get the task list. So for type 2s, typically you need to only put in 3 tasks. One would be concept development, the second would be revision, and the third would be setup for engineering. And it's as simple as that. As far as project templates go, we do have templates. If you go to Client, Templates, the project, there is a type 2 project template which has 6 tasks in it. There's concept development, download meeting, R&D, revision, ring critique, setup for engineering. This is typically more than they need. You're more than welcome to use this template. Estimating the hours, don't worry about that. You don't need to copy that. This will just automatically populate the task list for that job. You would hit save. So I'm actually going to just select the common task, those 3. This project shouldn't take more than that. I'm going to hit save. And so that saved it into the Salt Lake. So now, if I went to timesheet, if I'm Jamie tomorrow and I'm clocking into the job, I would go to Salt Lake and then it would probably end up down here close to the bottom. There's the Bees additional vinyl, and now I can clock into concept development to get started on that. So it's pretty easy, pretty straightforward. So now that I've saved that in FunctionFox, my last step is to actually alert Jamie to the project being in her queue. So I'm going to come over here to the comments, and that's where I am going to come down and I'm going to send her a message directly from Smartsheet letting her know that I've assigned her this project. So basically just letting her know that it is due tomorrow, so I'm having her work on it tomorrow. I'm giving her the permission saying use it as a break from curated, so that she knows that this is appropriate as far as, I'm letting her take a break from her priority, which has been getting the curated guides done. And then I did put a disclaimer in there saying it looks like Tara's put in a lot of good notes, but if she has any questions, please speak up. So again, I've read through it, I browsed it. I feel like there's probably enough there to put some designs together. But once she dives into it, she may find that there's something missing. But Jamie's really good. She knows the system. She's good to ask, and if she needs more information from Tara, she can go get that, or she can get with me about it. The other thing that I might add is if Jamie wasn't familiar with the project, I might put the link to the Bees design. I'm confident Jamie has worked on other Bees projects, so I'm pretty sure she knows where to find that on the server and she can get started. But that is something to consider, and I'm very conscious of that. So interns or newer designers who aren't as familiar with our system and the projects, sometimes it will be helpful to give them file paths for branding marks or for the original project, so they have somewhere to start. So I think Jamie will be good with this. I'm going to go ahead and send that to her. This is not a priority job, so I'm not going to worry about reaching out in any other way. But what I will do is make sure that it shows up in her report. So if I go back to the capacity reports, then when I go to Jamie's report, I'm looking at it, and earlier we saw she just had the curated stuff in there. Now you can see that the top thing on her list is the Bees vinyl. That's because it's all sorted by due date. So because we put this in for tomorrow, Thursday, then this actually supersedes her due date of Friday for this style. So when she comes in the morning, this would be a way that she would be alerted. She'd also get her email alert, and I can always check in with her to make sure that she got it. So that is essentially assigning a type 2 project. If I go back to the Smartsheet, you can see now she has her name here. We have this project with a due date. So the only other one now that I need to sign out is this tortilla sign. So remember, we skipped that one because this one already had a date and it was a priority. So if I go back to this tortilla sign, again, this one seemed very, very quick. It seemed like we were going to pull up something we've done in the past and just add new branding to it. So what I'm going to do is, I know that Katie is actually working on Brolem's branding. I know she's working on another project, but this would be a very fast project for Katie, hopefully. Plus it would help her get her familiar with some of the actual signage and center store items. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this due date for Friday. So I'm going to give Katie a little bit more time, but she might actually knock it out tomorrow. And I'm going to assign it to Katie. Katie's very familiar with the Brolem's branding, so this should be a very quick project for her. If I didn't put it in Katie's court, I did consider putting it in Lincoln's court as far as the creative intern, giving him something else to work on tomorrow. But without talking to Drew, I just always want to make sure that I'm not coming in between something that Drew needs done for Rainbow. And I did notice that they had a logo design that they were working on. So again, I put that in Katie's court. That was my logic for doing that as far as her already working on the branding. And then I assigned the due date of Friday. But just generally, designers are pretty good about moving stuff through if they can get to it faster. One thing I'm noticing is this is actually missing a quote number here. So I'm just going to right click and double check that something didn't get deleted, but it says this cell has no history, so that means this job never had a quote number assigned to it. So it probably got forgotten. So actually I'm going to go back over here, and we have Gabby who put the last comment in. She put it in today and this morning. So I'm actually going to reply to Gabby, and I'm going to ask her, please provide us a quote number when you get a chance. So I'm going to send that to Gabby. So hopefully we'll get that quote number tomorrow morning. And we can still move on projects. We can still get things going without a quote number. FunctionFox will allow us, like if I go back to managing projects, we don't have a quote number. FunctionFox defaults to this number. And we can always go back in after the fact. So any of these jobs down here, let's say this one didn't have a quote number, it had a default, and we get a quote number later. This little edit feature here will allow me to open up any job, and I can actually reassign any number. So I can move jobs between clients, I can add a new quote number, I can change any of the information and save the edit. So it's no big deal to actually update or edit project information once we put it in. So just keep that in mind. But because this is not a rush, I'm going to wait until tomorrow morning, and hopefully I can get Gabby to provide that quote number. So for right now, I'm just going to leave things as they are, and what I might do is go ahead and let Katie know that I've put this in her court, but we're waiting on a quote number. And then I'm explaining to Katie since she's already working on branding, hopefully this will be a quick job. And then one thing I will do for her is I'm going to actually do a little research on the server. So Katie is a little newer to working in retail, and so she could definitely look this sheet up, but to find the original design file that would allow her to manipulate the logos, that might take her a little more time. So I'm going to do that on the server for her, and then what I'll do is I'll add that file path in with this comment so that she has everything she needs. That's part of the creative direction and project management side, is I spend a little more time up front so that the designers have a little more efficiencies as they're starting projects. As much as I can. Sometimes I can't find things either, and sometimes we just don't have information, so designers will have to start from ground zero. But if I can provide that information, then I try to do that and make time for that. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go spend some time looking. It shouldn't take me too long because I have this as a starting point, but I'll add that note in here for Katie. That way she has a little more information to start with, and then as soon as we get that quote from Gabby, then I'll go in and I will update the FunctionFox. So it would be the same process we just went through with the bees vinyl as far as putting it in FunctionFox, and that should be pretty straightforward as a type 2.